Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be the Combat Series episode number 113 for you guys today. And to kick off this week's Combat Series, I'll be discussing the main event of UFC 319 between Dricus Du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev. So in the main event of UFC 319, it will be DDP defending the middleweight championship against Khamzat Chimaev in the main event of UFC 319. Now, before I get into my predictions, let's go over my storylines. Then we'll get a tail of the tape. Then I'll break down the fight for you guys. So starting off with the storyline, can Khamzat Chimaev finally climb to the top of the mountain? And what I mean by the top of the mountain is becoming a world champion in his MMA career inside the UFC world. Now, Khamzat Chimaev has everything you need to be a world champion in the UFC. He has the confidence in the octagon. He's a great striker, a freestyle wrestler. The man has everything, and he can end the fight in a blink of an eye. Matter of fact, I do believe, off the top of my head, he has only went the distance 2 times in his MMA career. Yes, 2 times. And he's finished the rest of his opponents off, whether that's submission or knockout. So, he's got all the skills. He's passed several tests in the UFC. His hardest fight a few years ago against Gilbert Burns, Kevin Holland, Kamar Usman, and Robert Whittaker. The only thing that's really holding Khamzat Chimaev back from getting to the top of the mountain is his health has been in the way. He hasn't earned a title shot because it's been times where Khamzat Chimaev's health has been so bad to the point where he is on bed rest, has been in the hospital. And I'm pretty sure there were whispers in the UFC with UFC executives and Dana White about, is Khamzat Chimaev going to be good enough to be a long-term fighter in the UFC plans due to his health issues in the past. And I know for a fact they probably thought about releasing Khamzat Chimaev maybe once or twice in the past due to these health issues. Nobody can control that. We're all human beings. But the health is, to me, is the reason why Khamzat Chimaev has yet to receive a championship fight, whether it's his time spent at welterweight or here at the middleweight division. But now it's a sink or swim moment, the biggest moment of his MMA career, when he gets in the octagon against DDP in main event UFC 319. So we're going to see if Khamzat Chimaev can finally climb to the top of the mountain. Then for the champion, can DDP continue his dominant run at the middleweight division? Now, he's on an 11-fight winning streak. This is the 11-fight winning streak started all the way back in 2019. So this man has not had a professional loss in 6 years. And he's done the dirty work to be the reigning defending middleweight champion in the UFC today. He's defeated Robert Whittaker, a former middleweight champion, one of the greatest middleweight champions of all time. He's submitted Israel Adesanya, the only guy to ever submit Israel Adesanya in the octagon. And he's defeated Sean Strickland twice, going the distance with him, having 2 successful middleweight championship defenses. Now we're going to see how DDP looks against arguably his toughest test and his UFC middleweight championship run, that being the undefeated Khamzat Chimaev. So this is going to be one hell of a UFC main event for you guys for UFC 319. Now let's get to the tail of the tape here. Starting off with the challenger. Khamzat Chimaev is 14-0. 6 victories come away of a knockout, 6 submission victories. Currently the 3rd ranked contender in the middleweight division today. Stands at 6'2" with a reach of 75 inches. Then we move on to the champion here, DDP. DDP is 23-2 in his MMA career. 9 victories come away of knockout, 11 submission victories. Currently the reigning defending middleweight champion in the UFC today. Stands at 6'1" with a reach of 76 inches. So I'm looking at the height and the reach. Well, the height goes in favor of the challenger, Khamzat Chimaev, but the reach goes in favor of the champion, DDP, a striker in his own right. So we'll see if he can use the reach to his advantage in the main event of UFC 319. Now, let's get into the following game plans that I have for these respective fighters to follow. They want to walk out of UFC 319 with that coveted middleweight championship. Starting off with the champion, DDP. I think DDP has to find a way to blitz. And what I mean by blitzing, not football, but what I mean by blitzing in the MMA is when you blitz your opponent with punches and flurries and you try to derail them defensively. This is what a blitz is, and DDP does that well inside the octagon. When he explodes, when he takes that extra step and explodes into his power punches, that's the best version that we see of DDP in the octagon when he's blitzing his opposition, his opponents. And DDP is also great being in control, laying punches and flurries, then going back to that awkward style. That awkward style, nobody has cracked the code, and this 11-fight winning streak dating back to 2019. This is an unprecedented run that DDP has gone on, but that awkward style, if you guys watch him in the octagon, I don't know what it is, but nobody's cracked the code of that. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that leads me to DDP fighting in different lateral movements. Now, DDP, does he have the best footwork? No, but it goes back to that awkward style. He is actually good at fighting in different lateral movements. He's not that guy that will stand in the pocket the whole duration of a fight. He likes to swiftly move around the octagon, does a good job at switching stances in between fights, or as the fight goes on, in between rounds, I should say. He's good at doing that. So if he can fight in different lateral movements, continue to switch stances and fight in different stances and landing the leg kicks to Khamzat Chimaev with leading with the right hand, he'll have no choice but to do this against an active pressure fighter like Khamzat Chimaev. And I think this can really work to his advantage in the main event of UFC 319. And last but not least, this is going to be the biggest question mark in this fight, and I'm going to get to that in a few moments when I talk about Khamzat Chimaev and the whole outcome of this fight. But DDP should tire out Khamzat Chimaev. Move around swiftly, make Khamzat Chimaev work in that octagon for how long this fight goes on. Because what happens if Khamzat Chimaev goes to the deep waters? What happens? Because DDP has all the experience in the world. He has the championship experience, fighting 5 championship rounds. He's been in there with the best middleweights that the UFC has to offer or has ever seen, with names like Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker. But Khamzat Chimaev has never fought an MMA fight that has went past 3 rounds. And that's a little alarming to me. Because what if this fight does go past 3 rounds? Will Khamzat Chimaev run out of gas? I think this should be in the strategy of DDP. Wear out Khamzat Chimaev, make him work, and if the fight goes past 3 rounds, this could be his world, because we don't know if Khamzat Chimaev is fit enough to swim in the deep waters. We don't know how much that cardiovascular gas tank can endure in a 5-round championship fight. But those are game plans I have for the champion. Now, going to the challenger, Khamzat Chimaev, I think Khamzat Chimaev should have that relentless pressure. Bring the relentless pressure to DDP. And Khamzat Chimaev does start off the fights. He does start off his fights very quickly and fast. And I think he should do that in this fight against DDP. Bring the pressure to him and walk down DDP as much as possible. Make DDP travel on his bicycle, fight off the back foot, and see what type of success that will bring to you as long as this fight goes on. But I think he should continue to fight coming forward, and try to derail that awkward style that DDP possesses. And I think it'd be smart if Khamzat Chimaev is the overall aggressor as long as this championship fight lasts. Now, next, I think Khamzat Chimaev should land the takedowns on DDP. I was thinking about that. I paused for a second, but I think this is the right route to go. I know DDP is effective on the ground, has 11 submission victories in his MMA career, but that freestyle wrestling style, that background that Khamzat Chimaev truly possesses, it's incredible. I think he should gain control on the mount or on side control. He's obviously a dangerous grappler. We've seen the flashes of what Khamzat Chimaev could do on the ground. 6 submission victories in his MMA career. And we've seen it with ease when he fought in October last, when he fought against Robert Whittaker. When the fight went to the ground, he easily made it his fight in his world against Robert Whittaker. And we know that bulldog choke that basically snapped the chin of Robert Whittaker, forcing him to submit quickly, and doing that with ease in the first round of his last fight. So we know the grappling game, the wrestling game, the freestyle background is in the favor of Khamzat Chimaev for this fight. But last but not least, I think Khamzat Chimaev should let the hands fly. He's a dangerous, explosive power puncher. He has explosive dynamite hands. And he has the lead right hand mixed with the explosive counter punching, which has made Khamzat Chimaev a special fighter in that octagon and has grown on a lot of UFC fans. So I'm confident for any of these game plans that I have for these respective fighters to follow. If they want to walk out of UFC 319 with that coveted middleweight championship. But with that being said, it's a tough one, guys. I'm going to go with DDP to successfully retain his middleweight championship against Khamzat Chimaev in the main event of UFC 319. Now, this is honestly a 50-50 fight. I can't remember how close a championship fight was like this for a main event of UFC pay-per-view in a long time in this middleweight division. It could go either way, but I'm trusting DDP to pull it out against Khamzat Chimaev. And here's why. That awkward style that DDP possesses, nobody on this 11-fight winning streak that has dated back to 2019 has cracked the code on DDP as he's climbed up the rankings in the middleweight division. And that awkward style that DDP has, lunging into his power shots, that's the bread and butter that DDP needs in order to defeat a well-rounded fighter like Khamzat Chimaev. And he's best when he's doing this, beating his opponents like this, landing the right hand, landing punches and flurries. I can see that awkward windmill hook that he likes to land when he steps into it, that awkward windmill hook shot. I can see it hitting right on the button on Khamzat Chimaev, hurting him a lot in this fight. And I also trust DDP's cardiovascular gas tank more than Khamzat Chimaev. Again, this dates back to what I just said. What if this fight goes past 3 rounds? Khamzat Chimaev has never had an MMA fight, as good as he is, that go past 3 rounds. DDP has all the championship experience. He has been in the deep waters in championship fights in the UFC. Khamzat Chimaev has not. And I've seen him get gassed or winded in fights in the past. Gilbert Burns is his toughest fight as a prime example of that. What if that fight went past 3 rounds, even though he won that fight by unanimous decision? What if that fight against Kamaru Usman, even though Usman took that fight on a 12-day notice, what if that fight went beyond 3 rounds? Someone that was getting a little tired, a little winded. I'm just saying, I've seen the flaws in Khamzat Chimaev's game. I've seen the chin being tested. I just think it's going to be DDP's night overall. I think this is going to be an incredible fight. But give me DDP to successfully retain the middleweight championship against Khamzat Chimaev in the main event of UFC 319. That is my UFC 319 fight prediction between DDP and Khamzat Chimaev.